Thanks for joining us here on this web exclusive. I'm Kelly Sullivan, joined with Eyewitness News analyst, retired Lieutenant General Reginald Centracchio. And General, the day after Christmas, we saw fights erupting inside malls across the country. The closest to us in Connecticut, Buckland Hills, there were fights. They had to shut down the mall at 7 o'clock at night, and that is a busy shopping day. We're learning that these fights were organized through social media. What's happening here?
You know, before, the fights we used to see in the malls had to do with Black Friday.
Right.
It was actually wrestling each other to get the first door open. Today, I think we're seeing something different. Unfortunately, it's not for the good. And we're seeing social media as the vehicle to get kids to come into the mall and start fights and brawls and disrupt the peace and quiet of people wanting to be at the mall, to be able to shop and have some kind of spirit during the season. So it's a changing environment, but once again, social media happens to be the center of this, and it's being used for the wrong reason, to get kids to come in and do bad things.
And so what, law enforcement just has to continuously monitor Twitter or Facebook, all those social media feeds, just to stay on top of it?
You know, Kelly, that's a good point, because every time you see something like this happen, it puts more of a burden on law enforcement. They only have so many assets. Instead of trying to catch the guy that's robbing a store, they're trying to catch the kids that are starting brawls to keep from people to go to the store. So it's a really changing environment, but it puts more and more stress and more demand on our law enforcement across the board. And
on a much more serious level, social media now being used as a recruitment tool for ISIS, gaining members of ISIS, and that's something that I know that members of law enforcement, FBI, obviously watching very closely, but that's still happening all across the world. I mean, how can you stop something like that?
You know, Kelly, as I prepare for these weekly things, I do a lot of reading, and I do a lot of looking at different things that are going on. It seems to be that many of the analysts across the world and here in this nation and looking at what's happening, what's developing, and all the experts and analysts are suggesting that perhaps 2017 will be a banner year, and it's a challenge year as to how much we need to look at the social media aspects of things such as Facebook, Twitter, and other accounts that people are reading without paying much attention to what is in it versus reacting to it. So this is a good example. You know, when you look at the social media being used as a recruitment tool for such things as ISIS, and looking for lone wolves who don't necessarily have allegiance to ISIS but want to make a statement of some type, social media seems to be the major recruitment tool that's being used, and I think unfortunately we'll see more and more of this as we get into the new year.
All right, General, and also staying on talking about computers, and now we have President Obama talking about particular sanctions or punishment for Russia for their alleged cyber attacks and hacking into U.S. systems. Does something need to be done?
Absolutely. I think we need to look at ways and means to be able to determine things before they happen. Unfortunately, this is reactive, and it really hasn't been defined as to whether in fact Russia has done this or not. But it's pretty evident that Russia had a part in whatever we're looking at. The thing that we need to do is to build better systems to detect it before it even happens, and that's being proactive. Unfortunately, we're now faced with looking at sanctions and looking at punishment for something that already happened. We've got to get to a point in this whole society of ours to detect these things well before they happen and to be able to stop them before they happen. And that would be, as far as I'm concerned, the only workable system that should be in place. Sanctions don't work from time to time. They only last as long as the problem isn't there. We've seen it across the Mideast. Sanctions don't work, and they may work for a very short time and hurt a few people. But the bottom line is whatever systems we come up with needs to work before it actually happens.
And just lastly, too, I know obviously President Obama says he wants to do something, but he only has so much time left, and then President-elect Trump will be taking over, and he has somewhat a alleged relationship with Putin and Russia. Can we expect to see if there are any punishments put forth? Will they be enacted?
Well, you know, President-elect Trump, now once again, I'm going off my purpose a little bit here, but he needs to pay attention to the intelligence gathering capability we have. If the FBI and CIA are saying that this is coming out of Russia, he can't refute that. He needs to pay attention to it, at least listen to what the possibilities are. Having said that, I'm not sure that his personal relationship, if there is one, with Putin is bad. At the same time, it could be disastrous if he allows Putin to be able to get things to happen that we wouldn't otherwise do, such as trust him. Clearly, we're both in the world to be able to exist separately and together at the same time. But Russia does not want to see us succeed, and we don't want to see Russia succeed in becoming the world power, so to speak. So I think I have mixed emotions about whether, in fact, there's a legitimate relationship between Putin and President-elect Trump, and whether, in fact, that relationship would affect any national security issues. I hope it doesn't, and I think he's smart enough to understand when you get your intelligence agencies telling you something, you need to be aware that maybe it is happening.
All right, General, thanks so much, and thanks for joining us here on this Web Exclusive.